I took the job at Cedar Hollow Lakeside Grill because it sounded like the perfect summer gig. Cash in hand, free meals, and a view of the water at sunset. The place was a weathered wooden shack with red shutters, perched right on the edge of Blackwater Lake, about 20 miles from campus. Most of the staff were seasonal workers like me, except for Gus, the fry cook, a grizzled guy in his 60s who smelled like old grease and menthol cigarettes. He'd been there since the place opened in the 80s, and he had this habit of staring at the lake while flipping burgers like he was waiting for something to surface. The first few weeks were easy, serving fried fish to tourists, sneaking beers after closing, laughing off Gus's rants about the lake's bad blood. But then I found the newspaper clipping tucked under the cash register, yellowed, brittle, dated July 18, 1987. The headline made my stomach drop. Local family drowns in Blackwater Lake. No bodies recovered. Gus caught me reading it. His hand clamped down on my shoulder so hard I yelped. "That ain't for you," he muttered, snatching the paper. His eyes were bloodshot, darting toward the kitchen like someone might be listening. When I asked what happened to the family, he just shook his head and said, "Some things don't stay buried." After that, things got weird. The radio in the kitchen would switch to static at full volume when no one was near it. Once I swore I saw a kid's handprint, small, wet, smear the inside of the freezer door. The worst was the dreams. Water filling my lungs, hands dragging me under, waking up gasping. Then, last Thursday, the power went out during my solo closing shift. The generator kicked on, but the light stayed dead. That's when the knocking started. 3 slow raps on the back window like someone testing the glass. I froze, because through the rain-streaked pane I could have sworn I saw a face. Pale, bloated, smiling. The face disappeared before I could even scream. My hands shook so bad I dropped the stack of menus I'd been holding, the plastic sleeves scattering across the floor. I told myself it was just a trick of the storm, maybe a branch hitting the window or some drunk tourist messing with me. But then the knocking came again, louder this time, more urgent. Bang, bang, bang. Each one rattled the glass in its frame. I grabbed my phone, but the screen flashed, "No service," in bold letters, even though I'd had full bars an hour ago. That's when I heard it. A voice, muffled but clear, cutting through the sound of the rain. "Help us," it whispered. Not from outside, from inside the restaurant, behind me. I spun around, but the dining room was empty, except for the puddle of water spreading near the door, even though it hadn't been raining when I came in. Gus's warning suddenly made sense. I lunged for the landline phone under the counter, but the line was dead, just a hollow hiss on the other end. The smell hit me next. Rotting algae, the kind that washes up on the lake shore in thick green clumps. My throat tightened. The cook station was a mess. The fryer oil had gone cold, but the air above it shimmered, like heat was rising anyway. And then I saw the photo. Taped to the back wall, half hidden under a grease-stained schedule, was a Polaroid of the drowned family. Parents and 2 kids standing right where I was now, in front of the grill. Their faces were blurred, but their clothes were dripping wet. The timestamp read July 18, 1987. The same day they died. The same day Gus had said the lake took what it was owed. A chair screeched behind me in the empty dining room. I wasn't alone anymore. The chair wasn't just moving, it was being pushed out, like someone had stood up from the table. My pulse roared in my ears as I grabbed the closest weapon I could find, a rusted fire poker leaning by the grill. The puddle near the door had grown, water creeping across the floorboards in thin, deliberate rivulets. Then came the sound of footsteps. Not the heavy thud of boots, but something worse. A wet, sloshing tread, leaving damp prints that vanished seconds after they appeared. I backed into the kitchen, but the fryer suddenly sputtered to life, oil bubbling violently despite the power outage. Gus's voice echoed in my head. "They don't drown you. They make you drown yourself." A cold breath brushed my neck. I whirled around, swinging the poker, but it passed right through the figure behind me. A man in a soaked flannel shirt, his eyes milky and unblinking. The room dropped 10 degrees in an instant. The thing, reached for me, its fingers swollen and pruned. I stumbled back, tripping over the mop bucket, and my hand landed on something metal under the sink. Gus's old filleting knife, slick with decades of fish blood. The spirit lurched forward, its jaw unhinging with a sound like cracking ice. "We're still hungry," it gurgled. That's when I remembered the news clipping's grim detail. The family had been last seen eating at this very restaurant before they vanished. The fryer hissed and the oil erupted in a geyser, spraying the ceiling. I didn't think, I just ran, slashing the knife through the air as I bolted for the door. The second I crossed the threshold, the lights flickered back on. Behind me, the dining room was pristine. No water, no footprints, just the Polaroid, now face up on the counter, the family's smiles twisted into something ravenous. I didn't sleep that night. I drove, straight to Gus's trailer, pounding on his door until he answered, reeking of whiskey and sweat. Before I could even speak, he looked at my shaking hands and said, "You saw him, didn't you?" His face crumpled like he'd been expecting this for years. Inside, he poured me a shot of something that burned like gasoline and told me the truth. The restaurant was built on a sinkhole where the lake's currents churned everything. Bodies, secrets, back to shore. The family didn't just drown. They were pulled under by something older, something that got hungry when the summer storms rolled in. "They ain't ghosts," Gus muttered. "They're lures. And once they've tasted you, they don't let go." He showed me his left forearm, 3 jagged scars, like something had dragged its nails through his flesh. I got away. Most don't. The next morning, I quit, packed my stuff and left town before sundown. But as I crossed the bridge out of Blackwater, my car radio crackled to life on its own, playing a warped version of "Row, Row, Row Your Boat," the same song that had been on the diner's jukebox the night before. The transmission cut to a child's voice whispering, "You forgot your tip." In my rearview mirror, the lake's surface shimmered, though there was no wind. When I got home, I found my backpack soaked through, reeking of algae. And tucked in the pocket, a Polaroid, fresh as if it had been taken that day. Me, standing at the grill. Behind me, 4 figures in dripping clothes, their hands on my shoulders. The timestamp, July 18th, 2023. I burned the photo, poured salt around my apartment, even went to a psychic who took one look at me and handed back my money saying, "They're not done with you." For weeks I woke up tasting lake water, my sheets damp with no explanation. Then, on the anniversary of the drownings, my phone buzzed with a notification, a missed call from Cedar Hollow Grill. The number had been disconnected for years. When I listened to the voicemail, all I heard was static and faint laughter. Kids laughing. I moved states, changed my number, but last summer, I got a postcard with no return address, just a photo of Blackwater Lake at dusk, the restaurant's neon sign glowing underwater. On the back, in shaky handwriting, "We saved you a seat." I tore it up, but sometimes when I'm near a lake I see them, pale shapes just beneath the surface, waving, waiting. Gus was wrong. They don't drown you. They make you want to come back. I was 17 the summer the pool started feeling wrong. Me and my friends Jake, Tyler, and Marco practically lived at the Crestwood Community Pool every July. It was our spot. Cracked concrete, that weird chlorine smell that never washed out, and the lifeguard chair where old Dave napped most afternoons. We'd cannonball into the deep end, flirt with the girls from school, and stay until closing. Our fingers pruned and our skin sunburnt. But that all changed after the night we broke in. It was Tyler's idea, obviously. "Dude, it's just water," he'd said, tossing a rock at the padlock until it snapped. We jumped in, laughing under the moonlight, but halfway through I felt something brush my leg. Not a leaf, not a trick of the cold. It was fingers. I freaked, swam to the edge, but when I looked back, the water was still. No one believed me. Not even when my calf showed 4 faint, grayish marks the next morning. After that, the pool didn't feel like ours anymore. I started noticing things, whispers when I was alone, like someone humming just below the surface. Shadows would dart along the bottom tiles, too fast to be fish. Once I swear I saw a face staring up at me from the drain, pale and bloated, lips moving like it was trying to speak. I told Jake, but he just splashed me and called me Ghost Boy. Then during cleanup duty, I found a waterlogged journal shoved under the bleachers. The pages were brittle, but I could make out dates, 1987, 1993, 2005, and beside them, names, drownings, all in the deep end, all unexplained. The last entry was a scribble. It pulls them under. It's still hungry. That's when the dread set in. Not fear, dread, thick and suffocating, like the water itself was pressing down on my lungs every time I got in. The worst part? The smell. After the journal, the pool reeked like something had rotted in the pipes. Not just chlorine. This was metallic, like old blood, with this weird undertone of wet hair. I tried to ignore it, but then Marco pointed it out too. Yo, why does it smell like a butcher shop in here? Dave, the lifeguard, just shrugged and dumped extra chemicals in. But it didn't help. That night I had my first dream about it. I was floating in the deep end, but the water was black, thick like oil. Hands kept grabbing my ankles, yanking me down, and when I opened my mouth to scream, water rushed in. Except it wasn't water. It was hair, long and slick, filling my throat. I woke up choking, my sheets soaked, but not with sweat. They were damp, reeking of pool water. I hadn't been near the pool in 2 days. I started avoiding the deep end, sticking to the shallow side where my feet could touch. But the thing, whatever it was, noticed. One afternoon, I was alone, waiting for the guys when the water in the deep end bulged. Not a ripple, not a splash, like something huge had risen just beneath the surface, stretching the water like a membrane. Then it popped. No sound, just this release. The air got heavy, and suddenly the whispers were everywhere, garbled like voices heard through a flooded radio. I bolted, but not fast enough. Behind me, the pool gate slammed shut on its own, and written in the condensation on the metal, my name, not scratched. Fingernails like someone had clawed it from the other side. That's when I knew. It wasn't just watching, it was learning. I showed the guys the claw marks on the gate, but they just laughed it off. Bro, you're losing it, Tyler said, flicking water at me. Marco, though, he got quiet. Later, he pulled me aside and told me he'd seen stuff too. Lights flickering near the pool at night, even though the power was off. A wet handprint on his car window one morning, small, like a kid's. We decided to dig deeper, and what we found made my stomach drop. The drownings in the journal, they all happened on the same date, July 18th. And guess what? That was tomorrow. The last entry had a name we recognized. Lily Carter, a girl from our school who'd supposedly moved away last summer, but the journal said otherwise. July 18th, 2022. Lily, it didn't let go. That night we broke in again, not to swim, but to check. The second my foot hit the deck, the air turned icy. The water was perfectly still, black as ink under the moon, but the drain was gurgling. Not like a clog, but like something was laughing down there. Marco shone his phone light into the deep end, and we saw it. A dark shape, curled up on the bottom, limbs too long, too thin. It wasn't human. It wasn't dead. It unfolded, slow, like it had been waiting. We ran, but not before I heard it. A wet, sloshing step behind us on the concrete. When I looked back, the pool was empty, but the gate, wide open, and hanging from the latch was a bracelet. Lily's bracelet. The one she'd worn every damn day. We didn't sleep. By sunrise, the pool looked normal, deceptively calm, like it was mocking us. But the locker room, Christ. The mirrors were fogged up, but not from heat. They were dripping, water slithering down in thick, slow streaks like the glass was sweating. And the stalls, every single one was flooded, ankle deep, water dark as diluted blood. That's when we saw the handprints. Tiny ones, child-sized, smeared across the tiles, leading to the showers. The pipes groaned like something was forcing its way through, and then, laughter. Not kids laughing, not even human. It was wet, gurgling, like it was bubbling up from a throat full of pond scum. Marco puked right there. I didn't blame him. The air smelled like opened graves. We should have bolted, but Lily's bracelet burned in my pocket, and I kept seeing her face, really seeing it. Not the girl from class, but the thing she must have become. So we went back to the pool at noon, July 18th, like idiots. The water was too clear, like staring into a glass tank. And at the bottom, they were there. Not one shape, many. Pale limbs tangled like roots, hair floating in a slow, swaying curtain. Their eyes were open, waiting. The second my shadow hit the water, their heads twitched toward me. Then the whispers started, not from the pool, from inside my skull. Come down, we're so cold. The lifeguard whistle blew. Dave was gone. The chair was empty. The whistle was underwater. The moment my sneaker touched the water's edge, the surface jerked like a muscle flexing. The pool wasn't reflecting sunlight anymore. It was swallowing it, turning the deep end into a black hole. My friends were shouting, but their voices warped like I was hearing them through a submerged ear. Then the ladder at the deep end creaked. Not from wind. Something was climbing out. The rungs groaned under invisible weight, dripping with water that wasn't just water. It was stringy, clinging like saliva between teeth. I stumbled back just as the diving board dipped on its own. Hard, like an invisible kid had jumped. The splash didn't make noise. It made a gasp. That's when the lights blew. Every bulb around the pool exploded at once, glass raining down as the shadows lunged. The thing from my dreams was here, not just in the water, but using it, wearing it like a second skin. The puddles near the drain twitched and merged, forming a shape too tall, too jagged, water sloughing off its limbs like it was shedding clothes. Its face, God, its face. It was Lily's, but stretched, her features melting and reforming like wax. Her mouth unhinged, and the sound that came out wasn't a scream. It was the gurgling choke of someone drowning from the inside. Marco finally snapped. He grabbed a rusted pool hook and charged, swinging at the thing's head. The metal passed right through, but the water screamed. And then the pool answered. The drain burst open with a sound like a dying whale. A geyser of black water shot up and the thing dissolved into it. But the horror wasn't over. The water level started rising. Not from the burst pipe. The pool was filling itself, liquid slopping over the edges in thick, syrupy waves. The journal pages I'd stuffed in my pocket turned soggy, ink bleeding through my jeans as the words, "It's still hungry," swelled legible for 1 second before dissolving. We ran for the fence, but the gate was rusted shut, hinges screaming. Behind us, the water was crawling, tendrils lapping at our heels, always an inch from skin. Jake tripped. The second his hand hit a puddle, it solidified, yanking him backward like quicksand. We barely pulled him free, his sneaker left behind, sucked under in half. A heartbeat. We never went back. The pool was drained the next week. Maintenance issues, the city said. But I know better. Sometimes at night, if I hold my breath too long, I hear it. The wet click of something swallowing in the dark. Lily's bracelet? It disappeared from my dresser. But last summer, on July 18th, I got a notification. A tagged photo from Crestwood Pool. Just black water. And in the center, barely visible, a pale hand breaking the surface, fingers curled like it's waving. Or beckoning. I moved across the country. My friends won't talk about it, but every time it rains, I check the puddles just in case they blink. My name's Jake, and this happened last August, right after what was supposed to be the perfect weekend camping trip with my friends Ryan, Leah, and Mateo. We'd spent 3 days hiking near Silverwood Lake, roasting marshmallows, and joking about how we were totally prepared for anything nature threw at us. Spoiler, we weren't. The drive back was all laughter and sunburned shoulders, the AC blasting as Ryan's old Jeep Cherokee rattled down this back road shortcut he swore would save us an hour. The sky had been clear when we left, but out here, miles from the nearest town, the weather changes fast. 1 minute the road was dry, the next fat raindrops smacked the windshield like someone was hurling them. Then the ditches on either side of us started filling with water, fast. Ryan slowed the Jeep, squinting through the downpour. Guys? The road ahead was gone, swallowed by a churning brown river where asphalt should have been. Leah gasped as the water crept toward the tires, and Mateo muttered, "No service. 0 bars." My stomach dropped. We were stuck, halfway up a hill with flooded lowlands behind us and this wall of water in front. The engine sputtered when Ryan tried reversing. Too deep. Rain hammered the roof like fists, and for the first time it hit me. We were stranded. No cars passed. No houses in sight. Just us, the rising water, and the woods pressing in on both sides. Then, over the storm, I heard it. A sharp crack from the trees, like something big stepping on a branch. Leah went rigid. "Did you guys just tap, tap, tap?" The sound cut her off. Not rain. Something knocking on the rear passenger window. We all froze. The tapping came again. Tap, tap, tap. slower this time, deliberate. My breath fogged the glass as I turned, expecting to see a tree branch swaying in the wind. Instead, the window was smeared with something thick and dark, like mud-streaked fingers had dragged down it. Ryan lunged for the door locks, the clunk too loud in the sudden silence. Outside, the water was now halfway up the tires, swirling with debris. Leah whispered, "There's no one out there, right? It's just the rain playing tricks." But then Mateo pointed, his hand shaking. Between the trees, maybe 20 feet back, a figure stood perfectly still. Not a hiker, not a ranger, just a silhouette, too tall and too thin, its head tilted at an unnatural angle, watching us. The Jeep's interior felt like a coffin. Ryan white-knuckled the wheel, muttering, "We need to move now," and revved the engine. The tires spun uselessly in the mud. Outside, the figure didn't move, but the tapping started again, this time on the roof, dull thuds moving from the back toward the windshield. Leah choked back a sob as something scraped against the metal like nails dragging. Then a sound I'll never unhear, a low, wet gurgle right outside my window, like someone drowning and laughing at the same time. Mateo grabbed my arm, his voice breaking. "Jake, the water, it's rising faster on your side." I looked down. Dark tendrils of water were seeping under the door, crawling toward my shoes. Whatever was out there wasn't just watching. It was hurting us. Ryan slammed the gear shift into reverse again, the Jeep lurching violently before stalling out. The headlights flickered, plunging us into near darkness for a heart-stopping second. That's when I saw it. More figures. Not just one now, but three, standing at the tree line. Their outlines blurred by the rain, but their postures all wrong, bent, disjointed like broken puppets. The water was up to the door handles now, sloshing over the floorboards, icy against my ankles. Leah fumbled for her phone, her fingers shaking as she turned on the flashlight and aimed it outside. The beam caught a glimpse of something pale and slick darting behind a tree, too fast to be human. "We can't stay here," Mateo hissed. "We gotta climb out the windows and make a run for higher ground." Before anyone could argue, the Jeep jolted. Something heavy had slammed into the back bumper. The force rocked us forward, and Leah screamed as the flashlight slipped from her grip, sinking into the murky water at our feet. The figures were moving now, wading through the flood toward us, their movements jerky but effortless, like the water wasn't even there. The tallest one lifted an arm, its fingers too long, too many joints, and tapped on the windshield. Tap, 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 mimicking the sound from before. Ryan cursed and kicked at his door, but the water pressure held it shut. I grabbed the tire iron from under my seat, my pulse roaring in my ears. "If we're going, we go now," I said. But as I turned to the window, a face pressed against the glass, sunken eyes, a mouth stretched too wide, and skin like wet newspaper peeling off bone. The thing's breath fogged the glass as its lips peeled back in a grin, rows of needle-thin teeth glistening in the dim light. I recoiled so hard my head smacked the window behind me, but I couldn't look away. Its eyes, they weren't human, just black pits, reflecting nothing, like holes punched through reality. The Jeep groaned as the water kept rising, now lapping at the seats. Ryan screamed, "Fuck this!" and kicked his window with his boots. The glass cracked but held. Outside, the other figures were closing in, their arms outstretched, fingers brushing the sides of the Jeep with a sound like sandpaper on metal. The tallest one tilted its head again, and this time, it spoke, a wet, guttural voice that didn't come from its mouth but from everywhere at once. "You shouldn't have stopped." Leah was hyperventilating, her nails digging into my arm. "We're gonna die. We're gonna die." I grabbed her shoulders. "No, we're not." The water was up to our waists now, freezing and reeking of rot. Mateo kicked at his window again, and this time it shattered, glass spraying into the flood. "Go!" he yelled, hauling himself through the opening. Ryan went next, then Leah. I took one last look at the thing still, pressed against my window, its grin widening impossibly, before lunging after my friends. The current nearly swept me under as I fought toward higher ground, my clothes weighing me down like lead. Behind us, the Jeep groaned, then disappeared beneath the water with a sickening gulp. The figures didn't follow. They just watched, standing perfectly still in the flood, their heads turning in unison as we scrambled up the muddy slope. We collapsed under a pine tree, gasping and shaking. The rain had slowed, but the woods were too quiet. No birds, no wind, just the distant rush of water. Ryan checked his phone. Still no signal. Leah hugged her knees, her teeth chattering. What were those things? None of us had an answer. Then Mateo stiffened. Do you hear that? At first, nothing. Then, drip, drip, drip. Not rain. Something wet hitting leaves. I looked up. Above us, perched on a branch, was one of them. It crouched like a gargoyle, its two long fingers curled around the bark, head cocked. At that same unnatural angle, it opened its mouth and hissed, a sound like radio static and nails on a chalkboard. We ran. The forest blurred as we crashed through underbrush, branches whipping at our faces. My lungs burned, but I didn't dare look back. Then Leah screamed. She'd tripped over something buried in the mud. We skidded to a stop. It was a sign, old and rusted, half sunk in the earth. Danger. Flash flood zone. No access during storms. Beneath it, scratched into the metal, were words that made my blood turn to ice. They come with the water. A twig snapped behind us. Close. Too close. Ryan yanked Leah up and we bolted again. No idea where we were going, just away. The trees thinned suddenly, and we stumbled onto a gravel road, miraculously untouched by the flood. A pair of headlights appeared in the distance. A truck. I sobbed with relief, waving my arms wildly. The truck screeched to a halt, and an old man rolled down his window, his face creased with concern. Y'all, all right? You're pale as ghosts. We tumbled into the bed of the truck, too shaken to explain. As we pulled away, I stared back at the woods. The figures stood at the tree line, motionless. The tallest one raised a hand, not in farewell, but in a gesture that felt like a promise. The old man dropped us at a gas station a few miles down the road. We called for help, gave half-truths about the flood, and never mentioned the things in the woods. The authorities found Ryan's Jeep the next day, totaled, miles downstream. They said it must have been swept away by the current, but I know better. We don't talk about that night. Not really. But sometimes when it rains too hard, I catch myself staring at the trees outside my window, watching for movement. And once, a few months ago, Leah texted me at 3 a.m. I heard tapping on my glass. I didn't ask for details. I don't want to know. Because whatever those things were, they're still out there, waiting. And the next time the floods come, they'll be hungry.